Good morning, class. So, our last session was moving the data from the OLAP system to our SAP BW. And as I said, we will be discussing how the data would be moved into our targets in our BW system so that we can do the reporting on it. Okay, so just let's a quick recap. I would be telling you once again from your OLTP, okay, using the different extractors, the ETL, you would be moving with the data to your data warehouse, which is your BW system. From there, the reporting is done and it is ready for publishing. Now, as we discussed in earlier classes, OLTP has different applications, right? All the applications are OLTP systems, right? As I said. So from OLTP, so in this comparing with the previous example here, application systems using with ETL, you move the data, right, to your BW system. That is, you're just trying to extract it. It's not something that the data is already in your SAP BW system. No, it is just an extractor using. That is the method. Extraction means it is something which you're trying to pull, but here you have not yet initiated to extract it. Okay, so now consider there is some type of, as I said, to move your data to your data targets, there are different methods. Now that particular method how you load the data to your targets is two different types of loading of the data. So that particular loading is master data and transaction data. There's master data and transaction data. Okay. Now, what is a master data and what is a transaction data? Of course, you need to know. And remember one thing, guys. Once you are thorough on master data loading and transaction data loading, the warehouse part is done. Most of the warehouse part is done. So let's talk about master data. The data which is constant or seldom changes. The data which is constant or the data which has a seldom changes in it, it is a master data. Now what you mean by seldom? Seldom changes. Something which is not frequently but very oftenly, you know, not all the time the data would change, but not oftenly the data doesn't change. Not oftenly, right? It would change, but not oftenly. So that is basically seldom changes. For example, if I take employee name is always constant, right? And his date of birth is always constant, right? His address, which is again a seldom change. Today it is something, tomorrow it might be something else. His designation, right? Today he is a manager, tomorrow he would be a general manager. So that is your master data. Okay. So as I was discussing that this particular data is it's supposed to be moved to a data targets, and that is in a different methodology. That methodology is what? It's a master data loading or a transaction data loading. Now, what is this data target? So we have to check what is this data target as well. So basically, for your master data loading, whenever you do a master data loading, in master data loading, the data target or the data is stored in master tables. It is stored in master table. So the data which is always constant or with some seldom changes, that is a master data, and it is always stored in your master data table. Alright, so let's talk about transaction data. We should be very brilliant here, because master data, as I said, which is always constant, so it is completely reverse to it, which is not constant. That is, it holds the different transactions. Like as I said, it holds the day-to-day, operational data. It holds the day-to-day operational data. That is, it keeps on changing, which is not constant. It keeps on changing. I'll explain you why it is not constant. Okay, keeps on changing. Right. Now, what is this data which is keeps on changing? For example, let's take your sales. Today their sales is some $100, and tomorrow it might be $200, and yesterday it might be $50. So there is always a change. But remember, if you want to do an analysis of a particular company or an organization in a particular region, you do need the employee information of that particular region in that organization, and also you have to know the sales information. So when you combine your employee information and your sales information, that becomes your transaction data. Here your employee information is something like your master data. So without your master data, you cannot get your transaction data, because it would be a meaningless data. So remember, always the master data is necessary when you try to do a transaction data. At least one particular field must be there when you try to do a transaction data. Okay? Alright. So the target in your master data is master table. So the target when you do a transaction data is DSO, right? Since 7.0, and in 3.x it is ODS, which is operational data store, and in 7 it is DSO, which is a data store object. Alright, and the other data target is info cubes or info cube. Right, now the main purpose of this particular info cube is, as it is a cubical structure, right? It is a cube in structure, right? It's a cube. It is used for multi-dimensional reporting. But there is a limitation for a cube. Limitation of an info cube. There is a chance of duplicates. There is a chance of duplicate in your data when you get the particular data to your info cube, which is the data target. So to avoid that, we have a features, and that feature which is in your data store object, which is a DSO. So let's talk about what is a DSO. DSO, or it's a ODS. So when you're in 7.0 platform, it is always your DSO. So this particular DSO, which it does your data consolidation. Alright, it does your data consolidation. Now what is this data consolidation? Let's discuss. If it is a new record, okay, just give me a moment, guys. You have different type of records. Just a moment, guys. Okay, if it is a new record, it is always inserted. Okay, if it is a modified record, it is updated. If it is a duplicate record, it is overwritten. So if it is a modified record, it is, sorry, if it is a new record, if it is inserted. If it is a modified record, it is updated. If it is a duplicate record, it is overwritten. Like say employee ID we have, and we have employee age, right? If the employee ID is A001 or A01, employee age is 10 years. That doesn't mean 30 years. And if employee A02 and employee A02 age is 40. So consider this data is already in your target. If in your source tomorrow there is a new employee who has joined and his ID would be A03 and his age is 30. This particular record is a new record, so it will be always inserted. Right? For example, if your employee age is 41, it is something like modified, so that will be always updated. All right, that would be always updated. And consider when there is a new record A03 with the age of 30, there is a new record A03 with the age of 30. What happens here? When you load the data, the new record is inserted. But this particular records, considering your previous load, these two records are duplicate records. Right? If they come in the report once again, that will be a duplication. So that is the reason the duplicate records will be overwritten here. That is the main functionality of DSO. Once it is done, then the data is moved to your InfoCube. So once the consolidation is done, the data will be moved to InfoCube, where you can have your multi-dimensional reporting. Right? So that is the necessity of your DSO. And there is one more concept, which is a PSA. This is called as persistent staging area. Persistent staging area. Whatever the data you load, it would be first of all staged here. This is something like a temporary location, temporary storage area. Right? Temporary storage location. Right, where you can, it is basically used for data quality, okay, and for modification as well. In 3.0 there is PSA, but in 7.0 the PSA is not there, but the concept of the PSA is there. We will talk about this PSA when we come into the data loading concepts, when we do the data loading part. I'm giving you the brief information as how the data is moved and what are the in between functionality features which comes into picture. Alright. Now, as I said, right now we are talking about SAP BW, SAP Business Application, the business warehouse system. So that particular business warehouse system, we do all this type of functions in a particular modeling, in a particular screen, which is a data warehouse workbench. You do the whole warehousing here. Alright, you do everything, the loading of your data, everything in this data warehouse workbench. Alright. One most important thing is in SAP, if you want to go from one screen to a different screen, I mean to say, let's say today, right now, if you're in data warehouse workbench, and if you want to go to something else, then you always use a codes, which is called as transaction codes. Using the transaction codes, you always go to a different screens in your SAP. Right, those are called as T codes. So when you log in, as I told you, when you first log in, you would be able to get a particular screen. So to go to your data warehouse workbench, the T code you use is RSA1. I will show that completely when you get into your loading training. Okay, the data loading training. Right. So please just keep this in mind. RSA1 is the transaction code. Alright, now what is the necessity, what is the significance, what we do in data warehousing workbench? Alright, what we do is, using this, we can design the data model of data warehouse. Right, and once we design it, these are the data targets: info cube, DSO, and master table. Okay, let me tell you something like metadata repository. Metadata repository. Okay, this is a data about data which acts as local search engine of the system. For example, in your business warehouse system, as I said, DSO and info cubes. For example, today, if you want to search for a particular info cube, you are aware of the name, but there are several info cubes. It is taking time for you to locate that info cube in the big list. So if you want to locate that particular info cube just in one shot, you can go to the metadata repository and type your info cube name so that you can get your info cube. You can get your info cube which you're looking for. All right. Okay. So, let me tell you about the business intelligence platform here. All right. So when I said platform, I will tell you why did I use the word platform. So what did we understood till the above information? The data is now moved to your data targets, right? Then what is the next step which we have to do? We have to generate the reports based on our user requirements. So to generate the reports, we have a business intelligence, the business suite platform, where we have different applications in there. All right, where we have different interfaces where we can generate the reports. The first one, which is a very important one, this is basically called as BEX, which is the Business Explorer. Using this, we can generate all the reports. This is the BEX. Using this itself, we have to generate our reports. And with this, we do have some kind of categories again, which is like query designer, analyzer, web application designer, which is web, okay, and report designer, and we have virtual composer, we have BEX broadcaster. All these tools, I said categories, but take this statement, all these tools are integrated. All these tools are integrated to portal service. We will be discussing about each and every tool when we come into our reporting sessions. So once a quick recap, as the data is available in different application systems, using the ETL method, we extract the data and transform it to our targets. Transform is something which is like a mapping, and based on that mapping, we load the data into our targets. Once the data is available in our targets, if it is a master data, the target is always a master table. If it is a transaction data, the target would be your DSO, which is a data store object, or your info cube. Once the data is available there, then we go ahead and do our reporting with the relevant tools which I have just mentioned here. Alright, so we will be continuing the next session, and thanks once again for watching the video.